All right, welcome everyone to the newest edition of our node operator community call. This is call number 15 for February 2024. We've got a relatively short agenda today, focusing on two really important things nonetheless. So first up, we're going to have Will, who's going to tell us about Simple DBT and the most recent deployment of the module to mainnet. And then Sven is going to run us through VaNOM, the validator and node operator metrics report for Q4 2023, along with an execution layer diversity update. Will, once you're ready, please share your screen and kick it off.
Awesome. Thanks. So as you mentioned, I'm Will. I'm a contributor to the Lido DAO and the Node Operator Mechanisms workstream. And today I'll be talking to you about the Simple DBT module. But we have a really exciting update this week because the module has officially been deployed on mainnet. And so this is the culmination of lots of great contribution from a number of Lido DAO contributors, lots of conversations with people involved within the DAO themselves. A huge thanks to all the infrastructure providers, especially related to testnets that have made this possible. And then definitely also to the OBOL and SSV network teams, which are the two DBT providers whose infrastructure and technology is being used to run these testnets, and hopefully will be starting to populate clusters on mainnet within the next few weeks. So last week, the Aragon vote passed. This is actually the most voted on Aragon vote. So this is the on-chain vote that takes place ever in the Lido DAO history. There was 75 different voters. This is the second vote that took place for Simple DBT. So the first vote was a snapshot vote at the sort of in the fall of last year. This vote passed with 99.99% support. Over 5% of LDO participated in this vote. And I think in general, there was a lot of enthusiasm. So if you did, in fact, actually vote on this Aragon vote, you can actually mint an OAT at the link below. We can include that in the YouTube notes as well. So we'll make sure to do that. On the right side of the screen, you can see a screenshot. This is taken from the website operators.lido.fi. Would encourage you to take a look at this. And this is a great resource to be able to look in a very simple way to see node operators that are running on mainnet using the protocol to run validators. If you go into the curated module, for example, you can see the validators or node operators that are active, how many keys they're running, how many keys they've submitted. And so on the right here, you can see the Simple DBT module is deployed and active there in the UI. While there is currently no clusters or no node operators running validators through the module yet, you can see that the share limit is 0.5%. And so the proposal for Simple DBT stated that the module would have a 0.5% share limit. And so the way this will work in practice is that as clusters are added to mainnet and eventually start to deposit keys to the Simple DBT node operator registry, as their key limits are raised, the stake allocation will flow first to the Simple DBT module, as long as there are keys deposited to the key limits are raised, and then stake would flow back to the curated module as a fallback. It is possible that like later on, after we see performance, that share limit goes higher, but that'll be a conversation that the DAO takes on probably after we see lots of demonstration of the success, hopefully, of this on mainnet. But as we'll talk about in the test nets coming up, I'm pretty optimistic that we're going to have good news to share in terms of performance for mainnet, because I think overall things have moved really smoothly. But again, just this is a pretty huge achievement, right? It's the second module to be deployed, the first new module to be deployed outside the curated module. And I think we're going to see a lot of really exciting developments, of which this is the first in the next few weeks. So in terms of where we stand, and in terms of, this is a slide that we've kind of showed in the past, but I think it was worth refreshing on because there's a couple of updates, and I think it's really important to just like dial in and hone in on a few of these points, right? So from my personal perspective, and I think that through many conversations with DAO contributors, DAO community members, broader ecosystem participants, that Simple DBT represents the fastest way to add many new node operators to the protocol. And so when we talked about this, I think the first time we showed this slide was at DevConnect in Istanbul. We talked about seeing around 200 net new node operators in Q3. And I think that even maybe conservatively, we'll see 250 plus. And that's really a result of the level of success that we've seen following these latest simple DBT testnets. The OBOL testnet is complete. We'll talk about that in more detail. The SSV testnet is almost finished. But in general, the quality of participants from solo stakers and community stakers and professional node operators has just really been quite superb overall. And so very encouraged that we'll see and have lots of new participants using the protocol to run validators in the next coming months. Number two is something that's really exciting to me because we've run 5 testnets that are completed. The 6th is the SSV testnet that should be wrapped up here shortly. And DBT has really the promise to improve the decentralization, distribution, and resilience of underlying infrastructure in general, right? But in general, you hear about a lot of promises with new technology. And I can say that from my perspective, it's quite clear that DBT is achieving all 3 of these things in a big way. There is huge benefits to resilience, right? So over the weekend, there was a bug in one of the clients on Husky related to Deneb. We had one cluster go offline for 10 minutes, and there's about 50 or 60 different node operators using Nimbus in some configuration within the testnet. So if you were running this as a vanilla validator, you'd see 60 nodes, basically 60 validators at least go offline. In our case, we didn't see this basically whatsoever. It was quickly resolved for the one that did. And that's really a testament to having different combinations of consensus layer clients in this case, but in general, having different mixtures of execution layer clients, having node operators participating in different countries all over the world. We have participants in testnet on every continent except for Antarctica. And it's really just quite encouraging to see that these resilience benefits are showing through. The same thing comes, I think, from my perspective in terms of decentralization, right? You have people running on different kinds of infrastructure, whether it is people running validators at home, people running validators through the public cloud, in bare metal and in data centers. And it's really encouraging because you're able to do this all within the same cluster. And so that intra-cluster resilience and decentralization has really just shown through. These points make me pretty optimistic for what we're going to see in terms of DBT adoption through the ecosystem overall. But it will take some time, right? Because the third point of simple DBT is to really battle test OBOL and SSV based DBT on mainnet. It'll take some time to show that performance. We'll talk about how we will pace the addition of validators a little bit later in this call. But what we've seen on testnet gives me, a lot of optimism for what we'll see hopefully on mainnet in the coming months in terms of really having the opportunity to show that this technology is doing what it's promising to do from both the OBOL and SSV side, which is super encouraging as well. So in terms of where we stand today, the OBOL testnet finished about 3-4 weeks ago at this point. And last week, the Lido node operator subgovernance group had their evaluation. So the LNOSG, the Lido node operator subgovernance group, is a subcommittee of the DAO, generally made up of Lido and Ethereum node operators, also Lido on Polygon, and as well as some independent third parties as well. And the LNOSG reviewed performance metrics across all of the participants in the testnet, of which there was 195 that completed the testnet. They also reviewed qualitative factors, had the opportunity to look through cluster threads, in some cases, really go deep on certain participants to understand why they may or may not have been a great participant or why maybe they shouldn't have been proposed to move forward in this case. But at the end of that call, the LNOSG decided to propose 161 distinct participants for the mainnet module and the OBOL clusters through simple DBT. And that includes 139 net new node operators that would be running validators using the protocol. So just within the OBOL clusters, you would see a massive increase in terms of the number of node operators participating. On the last slide, we talked about hoping for 250 net new node operators. I mean, just that over the existing curated operator set would be a 700% almost increase in node operators using the protocol. So, law of large numbers, and these numbers are small for now, but it's going to scale up quickly, I think, and it's really encouraging to see. Out of these 161 participants proposed, it includes 70 different solo stakers, 28 community stakers, 41 professional node operators, and then 22 members of the curated set. So, I mean, from my perspective, it's so encouraging to see that not only are we bringing in a lot of new people, but we're bringing in a totally new type of demographic, right? Like of staker types, right? Having these solo stakers and community stakers participating in the protocol is extremely important to improving the decentralization and distribution of the node operator set, changing the kinds of infrastructure types that are being used to run validators using the protocol, and I think in general really improve the resilience of the protocol. These 161 participants will run nodes from 36 different countries, again, just like the testnet on every single continent except for Antarctica. And the timing in terms of these clusters, we would expect them to go live on mainnet running validators, likely within late March, potentially right at the beginning of April. And then cohort 2 likely starting end of April, beginning of May. That will pen performance results, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. So in terms of the pacing, there will be 2 different cohorts, and the LNOSG has proposed 2 different cohorts so far. So the proposal calls for 24 initial clusters to be launched, 12 with OBOL, 12 with SSV. And so on the screenshot here, you can see this first cohort. It's important to note that there's no difference necessarily between the performance of cohort 1 and cohort 2. We had really great performance across many different node operators within the testnet, and so there just wasn't enough spots. In total, 26 clusters have been proposed. If you go to the Lido research forums and look at the Simple DBT proposal thread, there's a link and you can take a look at all of the different participants that have been proposed. You can see a couple of the comments just from people that were proposed there in the bottom left. And so that's also been really encouraging. Out of the 161 people proposed, I think 97% have already responded that they want to participate. And there's definitely a lot of excitement from lots of different and new types of node operators that will soon be participating. So in terms of SSV, and this is the testnet that is currently ongoing and should be wrapping up fairly quickly here, there are 31 of 32 clusters that now have had their key limits raised to 100 validators. That final cluster should be finished today and also running 100 validators. So we're still pending the final performance results. That will likely be shared towards the end of next week, along with a blog post. But assuming that things continue on the track that they have been for the last 4.5 weeks that we've been running these validators, we would expect to be finishing the testnet next week and exiting those validators probably by Tuesday. Currently, the block proposal success rate, uptime, and attestation effectiveness are all above the benchmarks. So that's really encouraging to see. And at this point, we're just trying to make sure that we have enough validators and enough data to confirm that those metrics are correct and that we can move forward with exiting. But there is one important thing I did want to call out because it's going to impact some of the data. So there's a pretty notable deterioration in Husky performance metrics over the last week and a half. So for example, per rated, the 72% network effectiveness, the 30-day network effectiveness rating for Husky is 72%. The 7-day is 63%, and the 1-day is 47%. And so that compares to the OBOL trial, which wrapped up in one of our last presentations. We talked about all the performance metrics there, but their performance period had a 79% rating. So even if you just compare the 79% versus the 72% of the last 30 days, that does sort of change things. And when the network performs at a deteriorating level, that also impacts validator performance. In general, though, like we are seeing that these clusters are above the benchmark. Just something we wanted to call out because it's pretty notable and a big shift. I think there's a few reasons for it. There's some client issues post Deneb that at this point are being pushed. So if you're running any of these clients that might have had issues, definitely make sure to just check in and make sure that you're updated to the latest versions. Yeah, I think in general, we should have good news to share here within the next week. So following the end of the testnet, we will post a blog that will have a really in-depth review of performance across the clusters. It'll talk about the whole testnet process, starting with cluster formation to cluster setups, activating validators, running validators. We'll talk about some of the issues faced, how those issues were resolved, and just in general, give a pretty good picture of what's happening. Very quickly after that, the LNOSG is planning to have another meeting. So that'll happen early to mid-March. Within that week that they meet, we'd expect to see the proposal of the participants for the SSV clusters that go live on mainnet. And then in the couple weeks after that, we'll see those clusters come on to the Simple DBT node operator registry. And then when that happens, you'll have the 12 OBOL clusters, you'll have the 12 SSV clusters. And at that point, the Simple DBT module committee will be able to raise key limits and hopefully see validators active within Q1, but definitely I think by the first week of Q2, if not. But we're definitely pushing to see this happen sooner than later. So in terms of the timeline, the module is now deployed. We've got the big green. The OBO cluster selection, while they have been proposed, there is a discussion period open on the forums. That'll finish on Thursday. So if anyone would like to leave any feedback, have any questions, feel free to do that in the simple DBT module proposal thread. In general, assuming that the proposal has no issues, we would start bringing OBO participants into the Discord, into specific threads for mainnet, likely at the beginning of next week, and they would start the process of setting up their multi-sigs, getting all of the addresses that they'll use verified, and then also get the process rolling to get DKG started, get their keys submitted to the registry, and then soon be ready to have their key limits raised and run these validators on mainnet. For SSV, as I mentioned, cluster selection will be taking place in the next few weeks. Once that's done, there will be another week waiting period for the DAO to weigh in with any comments. If there is no changes that are required, again, they'll take a week or so to get their clusters set up, get keys generated, and then we should see cohort 1 activated before the end of the month would be the goal. Once cohort 1 is activated, there's a minimum 30-day performance period that will be monitored. Each cluster of these 24 will run 5 validators. At the end of that 30 days, there will be a performance report posted to the research forums. We'll wait a week if performance is good, and if performance is good, then propose to raise key limits and start bringing in these cohort 2 clusters as well. Every 30 days for the first quarter, basically, of the lifespan of a cluster, there will be a research, or not research, but rather a performance report posted to the research forums. And then consistently and transparently after that, performance will be available. This should also be all available on the public monitoring sites that are available, like Rated in the future as well. Following cohort 2, we'll have these continued performance assessments, and there will be the potential for the LNOSG to suggest that key limits are raised. Economics on the DBT side are a little tricky, given that you're sharing rewards with multiple members, but the goal will be to, over time, if performance looks good, make sure that everyone that is participating is able to do this in a cost-effective and profitable way, and then pave the way for future onboardings, right? So there's another DBT testnet that's taking place in March, and we would highly encourage any solo stakers, any community stakers, any professional node operators that want to participate to sign this QR code and to fill out the form and get involved. We'll be starting in the next few weeks. All you need is a little bit of prior experience running either an OBO validator or an SSV-based validator. You probably have another week and a half to sort of get this done within the time frame, right? Like you haven't done before. So there's resources available in that simple DBT module proposal thread. But even if you go to the SSV or OBO websites, they make it really easy to learn how to do this. Just get a validator split onto those through either of those providers on the Husky testnet. Fill out the form, include a link to the validator's pub key and some identifying information, whether it's your operator ID or like an OBO ENR, just so we can track it to you. Run it for 2 weeks, and then you are good to go, and hopefully we'll be participating in this testnet. Again, everyone that wants to participate can participate. I'm not the most technical person, but I can set up a DBT validator. And that's a really encouraging thing, right? Because DBT lowers the barrier to entry for people to participate. And so if you have any interest in participating in decentralizing Ethereum, decentralizing Lido, providing security to the network, I think that this is an absolute no-brainer for people to get involved. Outside of that testnet, we'll have other performance reviews that take place by the Lido Node Operator Subgovernance Group, and there will be additional participants from this next testnet that are proposed to move to mainnet. So again, would love to see more faces filling out this form. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to nom@lido.fi via email. Also join the Discord, the Lido Discord, and we can answer questions there. But I think that's it. Really encouraged and excited to see the module deployed, and like absolutely stoked to hopefully have tons of new people running validators using the protocol in the next few weeks. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Will, for sharing that update. Can't wait until we've actually got some clusters online and we're starting to run validators. I don't see any questions in the chat, so I think we can move on to the next segment. Sven, whenever you're ready, please share your screen and take us through a guided tour of VaNOM.
There we go. Can I get this full screen? Hi guys, I'm Sven. I'm also a contributor to the DAO with the node operator mechanisms work stream. Normally I'm telling people to unmute and I actually forgot to do it myself now. So I'll be taking you through VaNOM. VaNOM is not something new. We've been doing that since I think late 2021, Q4. But I'd like to take you through the whole VaNOM report nevertheless. So hold on. So what is VaNOM to start off with? VaNOM was a dashboard we made, and it shows a variety of metrics, all related to the protocol's validated distribution, and it spans across different points in time, like quarterly data. So the metrics include information about client diversity, infrastructure, geolocation, jurisdiction dispersion, and since last quarter, Q4 2023. We are also including some preliminary metrics on censorship resistance. It's just min bid right now, but we're looking to expand this particular segment. The main data set, like the input for this dashboard, comes from self-reported data from node operators in the curated set, and they do report on a quarterly basis, and we ping them every quarter to make sure that they do, so the data is accurate and complete and up to date every time. The report comes out usually about 4 to 5 weeks after the quarter ends, and that's because there still is a lot of manual processing of this data involved, and that always takes time. And there's a lot of node operators involved who actually have to submit the data, so that also takes a bit of time to get that all straight. So taking through most of the components, I'm not going to take you through all the details. I actually showed the QR link where you can follow along there. This one, so you can scan that, follow along if you want. That's the public site. You can play around with it. Starting with the basic stats. So looking here at this graph specifically, we have 35 node operators. Now, people involved might know that we have historically onboarded 39 operators. Of those, we have one merger, so that's one down. We have Jump, who has offboarded, chosen to offboard from the curated set. Develop has onboarded only recently, and they weren't running keys at the end of Q4. They are running them now. And we have Imstones, who exited all their keys in November. It seems like a simple chart, but I want to take you through it anyway. So what this shows is the active validators per node operator. The orange line there, that's what we call our soft cap. So this represents the 1% of all active validators on the entire network. And the goal is to get each individual node operator to a point where they are running less than 1% of this soft cap. Now, withdrawals were made possible in May of this year on the Lido v2 upgrade. And you can see that some node operators are still running above the soft cap and some are running below it. Now, as the new node operators get onboarded, withdrawals and exits are prioritized to go to these node operators that are running more or an amount of stake above the soft cap. And new deposits are being prioritized to go to the node operators running below it. So starting with the lowest active count first, as long as they have keys available to deposit to. A new number we're showing now is the percentage of stake above the soft cap, so that you can see that as basically the blue area above the orange line, and we're trying to get that to 0, obviously. Also in the basic stats, the distribution equality metrics. Now we use 2 metrics for that, the Gini and the HHI, which is, as you all know, the Herfindahl-Hirschman index. I usually make an effort. And we try to get this one as low as possible as well. So a lower Gini and HHI as well represents a more equal distribution, where 0 would be a perfect distribution. And it's a bit offset by the amount boarded. So to explain rating on the chart in the left, it was at an all-time low in Q2 of last year, and it actually increased in the last 2 quarters. Reason for that being is that we have new node operators coming on board, and they need some time to catch up. So they start obviously with 0 validators, 0 keys, and they will get deposits routed to them and increase their active key counts and catch up with the rest, which means that in the time until they've caught up, there's actually a less equal distribution where the older node operators have a much larger, or not a much, but a larger share of validator keys. So like to compare, below you can see the distribution in Q2 of last year, and above that you can see the distribution of Q4. So while there is a total of node operators is higher in Q4, the distribution of the keys was less equal according to this rating. So that should improve as newer node operators catch up, and in fact they have improved, and we'll see that in Q1 of 2024. Another aspect or some other metrics that we obtain from our node operators through self-reporting is the infrastructure. So this particular graph shows the server types. Generally, when we do onboardings, the LNOSG uses these metrics as well, and they try to favor less represented server types. So for Lido on Ethereum Wave 5 in last, what was that, August, a lot of focus was on non-EU and USA-based node operators running bare metal servers, and we define bare metal in our case as dedicated, co-located, and on premises, because they're all offered as bare metal, and less so on public cloud because that's overrepresented currently. Below, on the pie charts below, you can see the distribution of bare metal server providers and also public cloud server providers. So that's the part. So that's the distribution of these particular segments across the different providers. And naturally, we try to encourage node operators to find a balance there as well. We track a bunch of different stats regarding geolocation. This particular one is the percentage of validators running on servers in different countries. Interesting to see for this quarter, and actually last quarter as well, is that in Africa and Latin America, we have starting to show that we have validators running there. Their performance started off not that well, but they've actually improved quite a bit over the last weeks, which is very encouraging to see. Naturally, we expect a lower performance in these areas, but so far it's going pretty well, and definitely not in the low end, but I think in the mid ranges currently, the performance. So that's very encouraging. I think that's also due to the work that these node operators have been doing in performance increases. Generally, we're not looking for perfect performance, but the goal here is to maximize distribution. Of course, if we can do that at a higher effectiveness, that's always good. So a new topic this quarter is the min bid. Now, if you go to the actual report, there's a lot of reports on min bid as well. In short, the min bid is a setting on MEVBoost where node operators can choose to produce a block locally if the value of that block is below a specific value, and that specific value would be the min bid setting. So, for example, a testant, they are considering increasing their min bid, but currently it's at 0.035. So if the rewards for a specific block that they want to propose is below 0.035, they will opt to produce that block locally instead of getting that block from a relay. And this is a great way to bypass the relays, and this is also really, really good generally for censorship resistance. Now, if you go to the report, there's a bunch of links to external dashboards that really did a great job on showing censorship resistance. I think Tony Washstetter is particularly someone who makes great dashboards showing the effect of these settings on the censorship resistance of specific node operators, validators, running validators, but also relays and block builders as well. Oh, the link is not there. I think it's censorship.pix. I highly recommend you take a look at that. And we'll be working on getting more of that data from our node operators on this report as well. Currently, there's only 4 node operators with a min bid setting that is not 0, and all the other ones, they are currently 0. They've been filtered out for visibility. Moving on, or actually back to client diversity. So first, CL, consensus layer diversity. On the left, you'll see the general distribution across Ethereum, across the entire network. Across Lido, it's more or less similar. We have a lower usage of Lighthouse and Prism, and a big usage, like a lot of node operators are fans of Vouch. I think we had Jim on last month explaining what Vouch is and presenting the new beta version of Vouch. In short, it's a dedicated validator client that can be connected to multiple validators at the same time. I think that's Nimbus, Teku, Lighthouse, and Prism. And it can use strategies to determine which of those clients is best for specific scenarios. So a testant, for example, does use Geth, but not for attestations, and that really mitigates most of the issues involved with the supermajority, with bugs in supermajority clients. So while they are using Geth, it doesn't impact well, they won't be affected if there's a bug in Geth, which has been topic of discussion as of late. I won't go through this chart entirely, but we have the consensus client distribution of each individual node operator. We also have this one for the execution layer as well, so that might be interesting to look at. And moving on to execution layer. So as of Q4 2023, the curated set is running on 67% Geth, which is actually almost a 12% drop compared to the previous quarter. Now, skipping this, so that 67% is actually it's the latest update in a trend that actually has been going on since the merge, where a lot of stability was where Geth was found to be much more stable than the alternative clients, and slowly has been replaced by other clients, like mainly Nethermind. I think they did a big update last summer, and really showing that they are very stable as well, and can be relied upon almost as good as Geth currently. Now this movement is going to be continuing next quarter as well. Let's see if we have that here. Yeah. So we have Izzy reached out on the forums and asking node operators to publicly commit to improving execution layer diversity. Shout out to Yorick down there, of course, because he's been relentlessly like pushing this issue of diversity, client diversity, and not just in January, but I mean, before I joined contributor, he was pushing this on all the channels that he's on, which is a lot, I think. So this call for public commitment was met quite overwhelmingly. Like a lot of node operators committed at this point. That was also a big movement going on, of course, online. I think we've summarized the current status, and I think can count it now. Quite a big like turnout of these public commitments. A lot of them on the actual posts, some publicly on Twitter. And now the status for these particular commitments are in different different phases, but range from completely reducing the usage of Geth, for example, for P2P, Kiln, and all nodes to 0, Sensei node as well, to a more diverse setup for other node operators. And the preliminary numbers looking at Q1 is that if all these Q1 commitments, because that's what they are, if they're all met, which we'll see at the end of Q1, then we're looking at a Geth usage for the Lido curated set for in the low 50s, at like 52% or something like that, which is really encouraging. That will be I think the biggest jump so far. So that's a really positive note to end on, and a great job on all these node operators for really taking that seriously. It's not easy to take the big cluster setups that they're generally running and migrating them all to a different client. It's not just the client itself; it's the whole supporting infrastructure. So this is a big migration for some of these node operators, and kudos to them, because that's due. And the entire network, by the way, because I think it's a massive undertaking that's really being this challenge is really being met in this quarter. Yeah, so down the road, like the VaNOM report didn't start out in its current form. It's evolved over time, and not just because of contributors thinking and improving. It's a lot of discussion online. So we definitely do value your input. We do see a lot of other maintainers of dashboards and these types of statistics openly discussing the ways these metrics should be defined, and we definitely welcome their input and also engage with them as much as we can. So yeah, reach out on the forums, on our Discord, email us. We have a Telegram as well, all over the place. We'll send links, share links in the description of this YouTube video, I guess. So that's it for VaNOM. And I think that's it for CC as well. Back to you, Izzy.
Thank you, Sven. Really, really awesome presentation. Thank you for running us through kind of like the key metrics that are exposed in VaNOM, and also some of like the more newly introduced ones, but also giving us an insight into developments that have already happened within the quarter on important things like execution layer diversity, and hopefully what looks to be another kind of like record at the end of Q1 in terms of improvements along execution layer diversity by node operators using the Lido protocol. So indeed, that wraps it up for today. I don't see any questions in the chats, and it's not often that we get to end before the 1 hour mark, so I think we can take this opportunity to do just that. Thank you to everybody for tuning in, and hopefully in the March call we're going to have a lot of details around SimpleDBT mainnet to share now that the module is live, now that clusters are being proposed by the LNOSG to the DAO, and now that the SSV testnet is wrapping up. Thanks a lot, everybody, and have a good night.